it's busy. I'll be
Yeah.
jumping off to answer lots of questions after this.
Amazing. How do you market your free challenges?
This time we've marketed it through my business partner's group. He's got a very large audience. Other times I do it through my own database and my own audience as well. Sometimes we do a bit of external, but we like to bring in what we can from our existing audience that know us. So yeah, it's gone well. We've got about 35 on it, which is just about manageable anymore, and it starts to get quite hard to keep up with everybody. So that's probably about the max I can cope with.
Yeah, 35 for a free challenge is good though, because it's very easy to have people sign up for something that's for free. And then like me, life gets in the way and then they don't do it because there's no accountability to rock up every day. How are you getting the hype going?
This one does have a small charge. I have done it free before. And to be honest, I've seen no difference in take up as to whether it was free or as to whether there was a small charge. I've played around with it. And equally, it doesn't determine how engaged people are, because some people might start and then, only get to day 2. But doesn't do it. They do it and they're in. And if they don't, regardless of whether they've paid or not. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'm really happy to hear it's working out well. So
thank you.
Keep that one going. That's good news. I'm just going to quickly text my. You're a bit choppy on my end. I'm not sure who it is. So I'm just going to text my assistant to watch us.
Yeah, you're a little bit choppy as well.
Yeah, I'm going to see who's the choppy one. Hey, bro.
I don't know.
Could you check out our live stream and tell me who is choppy? Awesome. No worries. Well, the audio is good. Yeah.
Sound seems fine.
So we'll have a go and we'll see what happens. But, obviously, as on the northern beaches, whenever there's a cloud, the internet goes out the window.
So I've only got to have a bit of wind and it goes for me.
You think in this day and age, right? You think in this day and age, but that's okay. So, Christian, just checking out. We are streaming live right now, but everyone loves a free form conversation like this. With the reason I go for more of a question and answer format in the podcast is because, and for a shorter one, I'm under no impression that anyone really cares about us too much yet. Enough to want to listen to a 3-hour podcast like Joe Rogan interviewing Kanye West. That's an exciting thing. You and I, we're going to give some value to people and hopefully that brings them in.
Totally.
Feedback is everything sounds perfect. So that's good. So no choppiness. Thank you, Christian. He's texting and saying we look good. Okay. And then, let's just get into it then. Let's just get into it. No worries. We'll do. You going glasses free?
I will. I've not got to read anything.
No worries. Okay, cool. Well, welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, everyone. It's a beautiful Thursday. I'm here with Susie Campbell. She's a PR guru, which is very exciting. Public relations. Sorry. And we're going to have a chat today about how Susie works in traditional media versus how we work in digital media, because I think it's going to be a really interesting vibe about the differences between how we both work. We both help businesses to generate traffic and leads through media in very, very different ways. So I'm really excited to chat to you today, Susie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Alex.
It's a real interesting field, PR and public relations, because these days there's so little barrier to entry to be in the media. You can just upload and live stream whenever you want. There's no red tape. There's no producers or executives stopping us from putting this podcast out, and whether no one's listening or 5 million people listening, it's the same amount of red tape that stops us. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the PR industry change much since people can just put themselves on TV whenever they like?
Well, you can't quite put yourself on TV whenever you like. It's a very different beast. And even from country to country. So when I do PR in Australia, it's different to doing PR in, say, the US or the UK. And it's, yes, of course, with the digital space, like you say, you can just live stream a podcast or you can do something on YouTube. But when you're talking about the traditional media, I guess the red tape is it's an editor or a producer's call as to whether they're going to publish anything that you've got to say. And for me, that's the fun part, because it really means that you've got to understand what journalists and producers want, and what you've got has got to be credible, and it's got to be good quality for them to want to feature you. And so although it's available to anyone to attempt and have a go at, there are some rules around playing in the traditional space versus the digital.
And that's where you come in. That's where you help people to navigate,
that's where I come in,
and curate the content and the appearance to become valuable to these traditional media outlets.
Yes.
That's really, really cool. So where, in this online world where, no one, most people are watching Netflix and Stan and Binge and Amazon Prime every night and listening to podcasts versus the radio and reading on their phone rather than newspapers. Where do you feel traditional media fits in as a way to promote businesses?
There's still very much a place, and actually radio has increased in popularity over the last few years. A lot of people are listening to radio, and equally people think that print newspapers are dying. Yes, some local papers have struggled, and they've tried to switch to the sort of advertising model to make it viable, but there is still a place for print newspapers. And just on the Northern Beaches where we are, there's been a new publication. It's just turned 1 year old, and that has become very popular. But what they've done very cleverly is made sure they've got a strong digital presence as well. So people have got that option between the print and digital, and their circulation is growing all the time.
What's the name of that publication?
So it's definitely still a traditional media. The Northern Beaches Review.
Oh, cool.
Awesome. It's a weekly print on the front cover of that one. It's a great publication, and published weekly. So
wow.
What we were saying, yeah, so traditional media, there's still very much a place for it, because of course we all still watch television, and people are still watching the news. People still want to listen to the radio, and obviously radio can be podcasts. So ABC have got radio shows, but they've also got podcasts that are hugely popular. Most print publications have a digital option. So if you were in the print option, you tend to be in the digital too, not always the other way around. So still huge opportunities there. And what traditional media allows you to do is reach those audiences in huge numbers that you probably couldn't have reached through a YouTube channel or a Facebook ad or something like that, not without paying a lot of money. And we pay to play on a lot of those platforms, and we pay to grow our audience. This earned media in traditional media is free. Obviously, if you use a publicist, there's a cost, but if you reach the media yourself, you can reach that audience for free.
That's really exciting. It's a good flip of the way I envisioned it, was that it's so easy to get yourself out there on the internet and just start. But you were very, very right. It's you're competing with so many people. So there's so much noise to compete with, that getting yourself onto one of these traditional media outlets that already has a big platform, then that skips through all the noise. So you get so much more reward once you do navigate your way through the system. Have you got any stories of like a local business who has just crushed it once they've been on the telly or the newspaper?
Yeah, well, and you're exactly right. That's the point. Lots of small businesses overlook traditional media because they think it's too difficult or they don't really understand it. And so you can cut through that noise because they're not doing it. And so you stand out amongst this crowd because you've done something slightly different and reached this new audience. And in reply to your latter question, yes. So I've had clients, obviously, in print, radio, TV, newspapers, whatever it might be, in all different parts. But I always start people off with local media. And some people kind of turn their nose up and think, oh, the local media, nobody reads it, nobody listens to it. Yes, they do. And this has been proven time and again. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So I had a client who was running face-to-face events locally, and he was posting on Facebook and posting on LinkedIn and trying to get people to attend his event. And I think he had one booking, and he'd cancelled the event, he'd given up. And he was telling me about this. And I said, well, have you tried a local media story? He said, no. I said, well, let's do one. So we did, and he got in the local paper the week before the event was meant to happen. He got a beautiful full page spread, colour photographs. They sent a photographer out to him, wrote up this story, a link to the event. He booked out. The event was back on, and he filled it. And he got inquiries afterwards for consulting and that sort of thing. He was a relationship coach. And this was fantastic. And obviously he grew his audience. He connected with people he obviously couldn't reach himself. He tried. And then he could go on and leverage that media coverage. And then that was actually picked up by the state paper. So you actually went in the digital version of the Daily Telegraph as well. So that was huge. He was so pleased. I had someone on radio, and the next day she got a call from a bookstore wanting to stock her book. Would have taken a lot of effort to try and get in that bookstore. She didn't have that credibility, but when she'd been heard on radio, it gave her that credibility, and the bookstore wanted to stock her book. So yeah, and there's heaps of examples.
I bet when people come on traditional media, then it'll have that secondary life on the internet where they are just leveraging the fact that they've been in the newspaper and photos of them on TV just forever.
Yes, exactly. It never disappears. So, you can screenshot yourself on TV. You can, I had a client who had physical premises. He blew up, he got on the front page of the paper, which was fab. So he blew it up, and he's got it on the wall of his, he's a gym owner, and he's got it on the wall of the gym. And everybody says, oh, what was that about? And it's great. There's so much you can do. So yeah.
That's really, really cool. I love that. And I'm racking my brain a little as to how I feel I would be relevant to get on. So we work with a lot of coaches. So the Coaches to the Moon podcast, generally coaches, consultants, people who offer a service to a particular kind of person. If you're working in a bit of a niche like myself, and I feel like potentially there's not heaps and heaps of coaches reading the local paper, how do you think that could be spun into a story or a media release that would be beneficial to my marketing or coaching business?
So everybody has a story. And if you use the example of the coach who was a relationship coach who got in the local paper, he could quite have said, well, there's not many people that are reading it that will want my help. How wrong he was. Yeah. You as a in the business coaching space, there are still relevant stories. Your own, what I call a profile story, your own backstory is generally a great story that leads into how you came to be doing what you're doing, or some of the challenges you faced and that sort of thing. That makes a great story for a local paper. But equally, a lot of local papers have got that. If you look at your local papers, you'll see features of business people doing things and businesses offering things, because amongst the community, how many small business owners are going to be, just in Sydney or on the northern beaches even, that would want your services? Probably thousands. I mean, you and I met through a Facebook group, and I could quite rightly need your services, and you've reached me imagine how many of me you could reach if you had a great write-up in a local paper about what you were doing. Thousands.
Perfect. It keeps coming back to story, doesn't it? It keeps coming back to story. I spoke to a woman yesterday who was a communication and speaking coach, helps people to present better on stage, on video. And I asked her the question about, what about the people who would think that their story is boring? And she said that what is common knowledge to you is rocket science to someone else.
She's absolutely right. And I pretty much say the same words almost daily. Yeah.
Right.
People don't see their own story and they don't get why it's of interest to anyone else, because you're living and breathing it and it's just what you do. My backstory intrigues people. I'm like, okay, well, it's not, but I get why it's interesting because I'm obviously a storyteller and that's my job. So I know which parts of my backstory are of interest, but others don't see it. And I love it when they start telling it me and I go, stop, tell me about that. Stop there. And they say, why? And I say, because that's really interesting. I want to know, and they go, oh, okay. It's great. It's like a light bulb goes on and they realize, oh, okay. And I say, but can you not see how that could inspire someone else or that could help somebody else? Someone will resonate with what you've gone through and think, yes, I need to speak to this person because they've gone through what I'm about to go through. So there's so much in everyone's lives that can help inspire, motivate, educate other people. It's just understanding how to tell that story and not sell the story when it comes to PR.
Ah, interesting. So in PR, are you not going in to sell? You're going in to tell a story and then let the PR sell it for you?
Yeah, you don't. So, and this is a classic mistake that people make. They try to sell what they're doing. They write me great sales pages, or they send me what they would write in a Facebook ad or something. You cannot sell to a journalist because they'll say, here's the telephone number for my advertising department. They will not listen. They're not there to advertise anybody. They're there to sell a story. You don't pick up or you don't listen to the radio like ABC. I'm not talking about commercial radio, but if you go to ABC radio and listen to it, you don't get adverts every 10 minutes. It's people being interviewed. It's interesting stories. And those stories are not trying to sell anything. They will indirectly sell, because if you're listening to someone on the radio and they're sharing something really interesting and you think, I'm going to look that person up. I want to know more about this person. And you go away and you Google. Sometimes at the end of the thing, they'll say, where to find them or who they are and all that sort of thing. So you'd go to their website. That has very cleverly sold to you, because you now feel that level of trust with that person to want to probably go and buy their services, which an advert generally can't do, or certainly not in its first go at you. They say 7-9 times before somebody will take that next step along the marketing route. In PR, you bypass the no, like, try. You jump straight to trust, because you believe, rightly or wrongly, well, that media outlet's interviewed them, that journalist trusts them, that producer trusts them enough to interview them. Therefore, I want to know more about this person. And you've discovered somebody that you've built a connection with. When you listen to someone on the radio or you read about them in the paper, there's that connection that you don't get when someone tries to sell to you. That's the difference.
Love that. Couldn't agree more as a marketer. As a marketer for people who are generally solopreneurs, or they are their own brand because they're a coach or a consultant. Yeah. Sell yourself, not the product, really is a very interesting concept to try and get across to people. So let's talk about your story. You said that you have an interesting backstory, and I know you do. I'm fascinated by the military, and you're ex-military in a couple different iterations. Give us a breakdown of, your military experience briefly.
Yeah, so I was in the British military. I was in the Royal Navy for about 12 years. I sailed the world, literally. I was very fortunate. Went to all parts of the world, met some amazing people, worked in operational environments as well as benign. And loved it. It taught me an awful lot. And obviously, people and teams is a huge part of what you do in the military. And I really feel that stood me in good stead when it came to running my own business. So many skills have transferred from my time in the military.
What skills are they?
I think ultimately resilience and persistence, and it sounds crazy, but having routines and processes and being very disciplined in how you run your business. I believe if you want to be successful, processes are really important. Little things like timekeeping and, as I say, discipline in and self-motivation, because without that, customers and clients won't feel that you're reliable. If you've got teams and people you work with or suppliers, you've got to have that discipline to make sure that you're delivering for them and you're working with them. So it's so many soft skills, I guess, which to me are really important skills.
Funny that they call things like resilience and discipline soft skills, hey? Whereas, Facebook ads is a skill that, you're never going to get good at Facebook ads or PR without the softer skills, that you kind of need to develop first. It's a funny balance. And you love, you're very active. You love running and hiking, that sort of thing. You do tend to notice that a lot of the more successful people out there take very good care of themselves physically as well.
I think that's an important part.
Well, yeah, because of what you just said, kind of if you're taking yourself seriously, then people can tell that you're going to take them seriously as well, hopefully.
I think so, yeah.
You can put in the work. So that's massive. Is there any involvement with the military still at all in any way or form?
Kind of. I dabbled with doing some reserve service over here. But my husband is in the military, so he was in the British Navy too, and he's now in the Australian Defence Force here. So I'm now a military wife, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. I wanted to be in the Air Force when I was a teenager, and I was told I was too short. I'm not that short. I'm like 5'10". I was maybe shorter at the time, and maybe he was just messing with me. But then I also applied, when I left school, I applied for ADFA, Australian Defence Force Academy.
Yeah.
They do like a gap year of sorts where you kind of get paid to go. And I had asthma when I was a kid, and apparently I've got flat feet. So I was rejected.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I went and became a chef instead, which is, I guess, is quite similar, getting shouted at and standing on your feet for a long time in boots. But it was a lot of fun. I'm fast. I could talk about military stuff for ages. It's not what we're here for today, but it's such a fascinating business. I'd love to talk to you about it some more in the future. But going off the skills that you were talking about that you've learned, resilience, persistence, that sort of thing, very important in business. A lot of business owners out there, they're very, very good at what they do. So they have the skills in PR, digital marketing, coaching, consulting, butchery, haberdashery, all these things. What would you say to, a relatively timid dressmaker who wants to promote themselves online, how to make the best impression, not online, sorry, how to make the best impression in traditional media when they don't see themselves as a particularly extroverted or out there person?
I think ultimately it's about preparation. So if you are or nervous, if somebody's asking you questions, practice it first. Practice in front of the mirror, practice in front of a friend or somebody you trust. Get them to ask you questions off the hoof with no preparation, and get them to ask you about your business, and rehearse some of the common questions. Like I get the same questions quite often, which is absolutely fine, because that's your job to, educate and add some value to the listener. And I always use a little rule, and I say to people, if the question that you're answering is just a yes or no, you've got to learn how to turn that into something more, because otherwise that interview is going to be quite dull if all you say is yes. So you've got to have that sort of thinking around it. Now, generally, professional journalists and producers will never give you a yes or no question. They will want you to elaborate, and that's what you need to practice. So if you said to me, what do you do, Susie? And I just say, I'm a publicist. Like, oh, okay, end of question. Whereas if I say, well, actually, I'm a publicist, and that means I help small businesses how to tell their story and reach the media and get into the newspaper and on TV. And all of a sudden someone goes, oh, really? How do you do that? And it prompts that natural conversation. So practice, because nervous people tend to shut down, and they only say what they feel they've got to say, and they don't know how to sort of elaborate and make it more intriguing and prompt those responses. So just practice, really.
Fair enough. So no one is, completely, what is the word? No one's completely off the table for getting a good, media story.
No, not at all. Not at all. There's every business owner has stories. Now, I talk about two things: media ready and media worthy. Most business owners are media worthy, meaning they've got stories that could be media stories. Sometimes they're not media ready in terms of maybe their website isn't working properly, or they have no social media presence and the journalist wouldn't be able to find anything out about them. Maybe they're personally not ready to speak to a journalist. As you said, they're too nervous yet, so they need a bit of rehearsing and practicing. But everybody has stories, so everybody has the potential to reach traditional media. Yes.
Wow, media ready is a massive concept. So that could be frustrating for you a little bit if someone comes to you and says, I want to be on the TV, but then when the journalist says, where do we find you? And they say, personal Facebook profile, there's not really, it doesn't really allow you to do your job properly. So how would people, if somebody wanted to be on the TV in a publication, how would you suggest they get themselves media ready to make the most of that appearance?
A few simple things, and it's something I will make sure I do with any client who approaches me who wants to do media. I say, right, we need to check your media ready first. So it's simple things like, does your website work? Does it load properly? Are you contactable? Is there contact information on it? Are the photographs up to date? Sounds crazy, but if you then get photographed in the media and the photographs on your website are 20 years old and you look nothing like you do now, there's a mismatch there, because you've got to remember that people are seeing you now and they're warming to who you are in the media. And then if they go to the website and think, oh, is that the same person? Oh, that's really outdated. And it's not a good look. So photography, all your links, all your touch points. So whether that's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, all your social media touch points. If you're a physical premises, I always say, make sure the obvious, door signage, your windows, everything, because again, if they want to turn up and take photographs and your shop windows grubby and unkempt, that's not a good look. And sometimes you will pitch a story and they want to send the photographer that day. So you haven't got time to be cleaning your windows and prepping your premises. So I always make sure people are media ready first. And that comes with a bit of, asking the obvious questions. Are you prepared to be camera facing? Are you prepared to talk live to a journalist who's going to record your answers? Are you prepared to share certain things that perhaps you might, are personal? Is there anything that you don't want the media to know? And it's making sure they know that, because if they accidentally slip up and tell them something and say, oh, actually, no, I don't want you to say that. Yes, most journalists will abide by that. But if you can avoid that situation in the first place, it's a lot easier to deal with. So yeah, media ready, it's generally, if somebody Googled you or tried to find you, what are they going to see? Is it credible? Is it, does it work properly? Does it look good?
Yeah, that is such good, tangible advice. And, I'm starting to see, off the back of never talking to a publicist before, or even thinking, that it was really a thing for small businesses versus celebrities. After never talking to a publicist before, I would have never thought that far into, cleaning your shop windows, making sure your photos are all up to date. I've grown a moustache since the photo on my website, so I think I can get away with that one. But if my wife had any excuse to make me shave it off, then she would. So maybe I won't let her watch that segment of the interview. So he says, you're not media ready. Getting all those assets ready is obviously massive for online presence. And now we're seeing the importance of having it, even if you're going for a more traditional media presence. But this is a question I love to ask people, and I'd love your take on it. If you were running a small business, local or otherwise, and you had sort of $5,000 to $10,000 to go and promote it, you came into a couple sales and you got some cash to promote your business, what would you do with it?
Do you know what? I would do a face-to-face event, because we've not been able to do them for so long, and I love teaching. So many moons ago, I was a teacher. Well, I was a PE teacher, and I love getting in front of people. I love teaching them something, allowing them to walk away having learned something useful that they can go away and do. That's why I love teaching media, because although I do it for people, I also teach it. And it's great when they walk away and they've got a pitch and they can pitch it to the journalist, and they get media coverage. So I would do a face-to-face event, I think, and get people in a room, have fun for the day, learn about the media, and hopefully they go away and they secure media for themselves.
Really cool. And does that come into it? I suppose the environment, of what's going on at the moment, does that come into how you help people prepare for their media publications? Like you said, we haven't had face-to-face events for such a long time. Now that lockdown's finished, would you kind of suggest to people, let's do an end of lockdown post, an end of lockdown article? Or if it was, just like it'd be Christmas or Halloween or summertime, does that come into it when you're helping people to promote themselves?
As a kind of a reason to use the media, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's the end of lockdown, so we're doing an event. Would you focus on those little kind of factors, environmental factors and time of the year and that sort of thing, as part of a good publication?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So there's lots of reasons and places that you can find media stories. And I've got this mind map of all these different places that you can look. And absolutely seasonal things that are happening in the environment and, in the general news world, breaking news stories, celebrities. There are so many places that you can find hooks for stories, and obviously in what you're doing. So if a bricks and mortar store that's been closed down for 4 months and now they've been able to reopen and they're going to do something really crazy and wacky for Christmas, to the fact that people can come in, then that can be a great local news story. Absolutely. Yeah. I've had, it reminds me of a client I had, and she was in this really tucked away location. It was this little laneway and you couldn't see it, to the point that the laneway didn't actually have a name. So I came up with this idea of, why don't we do a bit of a competition in the local community to name this lane? Because not only is that fun for the community, they actually get a name and they get known and everyone knows where it is. And we've got this amazing photograph in the paper, and all the retailers along this little laneway were all in this picture, all stood together. And it was amazing. And the laneway got named, and so the community knew where it was, and it got a name on the wall. And so there's silly little things that you can do to attract attention. And that one I call a media stunt, and I love doing media stunts. So a media stunt is something you do which attracts the attention potentially of the media, or gives you an opportunity to reach the media because it's just a bit out there and a bit different.
Yeah, even if you don't particularly, make an immediate return on that event, maybe it costs you money to do that event, then the media coverage and the ongoing effect will, bring it back to your business in droves in the future, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because people remember you for that sometimes. Oh, you're the shop that did this, or you become known for that. If you've ever watched, you might not have seen it. It's a British show, which Gordon Ramsay used to do. And he used to go into different restaurants or cafes and help them to become known for something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my tagline: become known, become famous. If you're known for something, people remember you, because they might not remember your name or the business name, but they remember what you're known for. And that can be all sorts of things. And once you become known for something, then people remember you, people want to come back to you, they tell others, they refer, and that's what you need.
So like best sausages in Sydney, or home of the 4-foot sandwich, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm from restaurants, and
again, actually with restaurant deal to do it. I did it with a restaurant, and they had best pasty, and they had loads of fun making different pasties, and customers used to have a go at doing the recipe, and loads of fun around it. And then they're known for this pasty, and everybody goes for this pasty that they only do through winter, but it's fun.
Love that. It's you got to have a system. You got to become known for something online. I often talk about having your own very exciting, new and unique system, your Venus, because I'm to the moon. Everything I do is kind of space themed.
Nice.
But your Venus, everyone's going to have their Venus, and whether that's a service or a product or your online system that just, separates you from the crowd, and you're doing that with people every day, Susie. I'm honestly, this whole conversation has sold me even harder on wanting to work with you. So you've done the job. You've told rather than sold, and I'm super happy to have a chat with you. I know you're running a challenge right now to help people get started with this stuff, but is there anything else coming up that people can do to find you and kind of get their business rolling in the publicity space?
Yeah, so I've got a Facebook group where I share lots of sort of tips and advice, which is called Ambitious Business Owners Become Known, Become Famous. So by all means, feel free to head over there. Obviously, I've got a website where you can, which is hullabaloo.pr.com.au. And you can connect with me there, or feel free to find me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to find me. Always
front
happy
page
to
of
chat.
The newspaper.
Front page of the newspaper. I have been in the news. So that I think that's an interesting point. So I'm a very practical publicist. So I do as well as show. And I feel that if I'm showing other people how to do it and I'm teaching this, I need to do it for myself too. So I always make sure that I'm doing PR for myself, whether it's stuff I'm doing personally as an individual, like I'm doing some charity work at the moment and I've just secured some magazine coverage, or whether it's for my business. I think it's really important because it means I'm constantly speaking to journalists, speaking to producers. I understand what they want, what works, what doesn't work, so that I can pass that knowledge on to my clients and give them the best advice I can, really. But yeah, always happy to chat to anyone who's curious about PR or fancies having a go themselves or wants me to do it for them. I don't mind.
Love that. I think a lot of people will be curious off the back of this, and we all want to be famous for those 15 minutes, if not longer. So thank you so much, Susie. That's been a lovely, lovely conversation. I've learned heaps of stuff, and I think there's lots of really tangible advice people can take away from this conversation. So anyone who's watching live, I can't see the screen right now, but thank you for watching live. Anyone on Spotify or Apple, cheers for listening. We'll see you next week. Susie, I always say thank you one more time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Alex. It was lovely. Enjoyed the chat.
Yeah, me too. And anyone listening, we will see you next time on Coaches to the Moon.